Good evening and welcome to Greater Somerville for September 4th, 2012. I'm Joe Lynch. My guest tonight is Frank Ciano, one of 6 candidates for Register of Deeds in southern Middlesex County. An attorney by trade in private practice and an Arlington resident, he is the former president of the Middlesex Bar Association and the Cambridge-Arlington-Belmont Bar Association. Active in many community service organizations, he is running on a reform platform pledging to modernize the registry and clear the backlog of work in the lands division. It is my pleasure to welcome to Greater Somerville Frank Ciano, candidate for Register of Deeds, Middlesex Southern District.
Thank you, Mr. Lynn.
Welcome back to the hot set. I hear, rumor mill tells me, you were on The Pundit last week.
That is true.
With Jim Campano and Dan Hurley.
Mr. Hurley, yes.
Yeah. So you're making the rounds, but you enjoyed it so much, Frank, you wanted to come back.
Yeah, this is true.
There you go.
Yes, I can't stay away.
There you go. So I happened to catch your commercial. Okay. You did a video commercial, and it's up on your website.
Yes.
We're going to give Frank's website a couple of times during the show. It is frankjciano.com, and you're running for Register of Deeds. But I caught the commercial last week. That is a cute commercial. That is good. Very well done.
Well, it's good to have friends.
Yeah, there you go. If you want to see Frank's commercial, go onto his website for Register of Deeds. You are right at the 48-hour mark. Mm-hmm. You made it right under the wire here because on Scat TV we try not to have candidates on the week of the election, but we had to make an exception because they had shifted the election out to Thursday. Okay. So you made it under the wire, Frank.
Appreciate it.
There you go.
Nice to be here.
So what makes Frank run for Register of Deeds?
A good question. What makes Frank run? Back in October, I was at the registry, and I've said and resaid and retold the story, recording deeds, and came to learn at that time, which I should have learned before, but learned then that the existing register was not running. Spoke to various people at the register and registry, and learned that they were not at the time happy with the people saying that they would run. So I then sat with the register and then did my due diligence and talked to a variety of people because of the problems that I saw at the registry and always being Mr. Fix-It. In fact, I had somebody that worked for me, and he called me Mr. Fix-It. So I threw my hat in to fix things, as I love to do. So that's how it came to be.
There you go. There you go. So you've had experience at the registry for years, being an attorney and working in that type of industry. So you know what the issues are from a customer service standpoint.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was troubling to me. It was troubling to me, although I have the utmost respect for the existing register, it was troubling to me that people would try and record in a given day or in a given time and not go on record. They would be sent home. That was troubling to me. It was troubling to me the Lindell's system of taking a number and people waiting for hours trying to record and then being turned away. And then the final, so many more, the consumer issue of not having humans answer the phones, electronic recordings being sent in and not given a specific date and time when they'd go on record was troubling to me. And then the final thing, and so many more, was the backlog in the registered land of 7+ years. And I was the first one to start talking about it. And so what I did is I went up to northern Middlesex and sat with Dick Howe. I sat with John O'Brien, who's quite a character.
Howe being the register.
The register, forgive me.
Northern Middlesex.
Northern Middlesex, yes. And he gave me ideas and told me that he answers his phones, responds to emails himself, and said that on occasion he was called upon to help Southern Middlesex, which I would turn to him upon being elected and look for that assistance again because of this backlog.
Frank, if you don't mind, let's take a step back.
Yep.
For those folks at home, I'm sure everybody from Somerville anyway, they know who Gene Brune is. They know that he's been the Register of Deeds in Middlesex County for years. They also knew him from being mayor of Somerville, but when it comes to the Registry of Deeds itself, what is the function that they are responsible for administering?
They are responsible for all land recordings for 44 cities and towns in this county. And as you know, it was originally a county seat position funded through the county commissioners. And when county government was gone, it then came under the control, as it were, at least the budget did, of the Secretary of State, who has been for many years, Billy Galvin.
Mm-hmm.
So the registry is responsible for accepting proper, under the law, deeds for the ownership of land, for mortgages with respect to land, liens, IRS liens, bankruptcy filings, and so on. And there are requirements that go along with it, and the register is supposed to make sure that the requirements are met prior to recording, which then came to, in southern Essex, this robo-signing business, which was just a shame.
Robo-signing was the, my words, Frank, the illegal practice by some mortgage companies and banks of having consumers just automatically waive their rights, get a mortgage, and then they got sunk later on.
That was the start of it.
Yeah.
And that was the start of it. And ultimately what happened, and there's this famous movie, Margin Call, and who's in it? And the names escape me right now. I can see his face. And it'll come to me as we talk. But basically what happened is the banks that had the mortgages then assigned them to other banks. It's kind of like a Filene's Basement, if anyone out there remembers Filene's Basement, at Filene's Basement prices. And to do that, because there were hundreds of thousands of mortgages assigned, humans would, there would be a names signing them over John Smith, when in reality John Smith was not signing the assignments to the banks, and they were notarized fraudulently and improperly. And the first one that picked this up was John O'Brien out of southern Essex over in Salem, and then he brought it to the attention of the Attorney General, and basically there was a forensic analysis done in southern Essex over there in Salem by a lady by the name of Marie McDonald, who's always been in the forefront back in the days of the other problem with condominium and mortgages being sold. And I won't say the name of the bank, but there was a bank that did accelerated interest payments. So if you didn't pay the first month, and they'd give you short money to pay the first month, and if you didn't pay it or you got behind, it would accelerate to something crazy, like 18%.
It all pretty much rolls up into what, the layman, the consumer, would look at as predatory lending. I mean, it's all part of that whole process where the unsuspecting or the consumer who doesn't want to know sees free and quick money.
Yes.
And then the system got caught up in that. So the deeds and a lot of other folks got caught into that whole web. So let's go back to deeds itself. I mean, the current Register of Deeds, former Mayor Brune, pretty much has a clean record over at deeds itself in Middlesex County. But what you're saying is that the administrative function needs somebody in there who can unravel all of this and speed it up, so to speak, because you've got a backlog in the registering of land records. So what causes a backlog like that?
Well, what it comes down to is lack of supervision. My apologies, but lack of supervision and a failure, and that's why my legal training is necessary, and there are other candidates who don't have that, but it's important in the Registered Land Division. Now, the papers are getting recorded and documented, but the problem then is in the Registered Land Division, which is special here in Massachusetts, a title certificate akin to a car title should issue. And such a title has not issued. The beauty of having that title is it would show who has owned it over the history of the land, what liens there are on it, and it almost like with automobiles, you can go online and find out who owned it and what the problems were.
Former ownership,
which is beautiful.
Insurance claims, if there was ever an accident with the car.
Exactly, exactly, Ms. Lynch. And unfortunately that has not been done for years. And I think from a legal point of view, that's an important piece of paper, and I see it as such, where the existing register apparently doesn't. So there was a lack of, I submit, supervision, and some people say it's because things were so busy, and the department did not have the manpower, because back in the days of John Zamparelli out of Medford, there were 150 people at that registry, and now there are 67. The budget is $3.1 million. It takes in $65 million in revenue, and a piece of that goes back to cities and towns through community action grants. Community Preservation Act, yes, thank you, in towns that have accepted it. I know Belmont has accepted it, and that's great. That won't be affected, and the money is going to the cities and towns. But the problem is, with all the money coming into the registry should have its fair share of the budget. And the assistant registers, I've come to learn through my due diligence, there are 2 and a technical assistant in the Registered Land Division. They get paid $10,000 less a year than Suffolk. Whereas in Middlesex, we're recording more docks. It's the biggest county in the state, probably the biggest in the country, and we're not getting our fair share.
So if you're successful in this preliminary, we should mention a couple of times right here on the show, once again, September 6th, which is day after tomorrow, Thursday, is the preliminary.
Yes.
All 6 candidates for Register of Deeds in southern Middlesex County are going to square off against each other.
Yes.
And you've all done your campaigning. Congratulations, by the way. To be a successful candidate and to have your name on the ballot is an accomplishment in itself.
Thank you. You know, Joe.
I do know that.
I do know
it is not an easy task. Raising money to mount a campaign is not an easy thing either. But all 6 candidates will appear on the Somerville ballot, as well as our state representative. Denise Provo has also got a opponent this year. So September 6th, which is Thursday, the polls open at 7 or 8? 8. Polls open at 8, I think, in Somerville. So please get out there and vote. You have until 8 o'clock Thursday night. That's my pitch.
Okay, all right.
Everybody who watches this show knows I've almost forced people to get out and vote. But so now you got 6 candidates, and what you've been describing, Frank, is really an administrative function. It's a function of throughput, it's a function of technology, and it's a function of customer service.
Yes.
On how people who have to use the Register of Deeds are treated by the employees of the register. So you said something interesting, that at one point the registry had 160-odd employees, down to about 50-something now. How much of that, though, is a function of where technology has taken the place of human people working at the registry?
Well, Joe, you make a good point. And what I take my hat off using my Indiana Jones.
There you go. You got to see the commercial, folks.
Please see the frankjciano.com. And it is on Scat TV, they tell me.
Yeah, it has played, yeah.
That what he did do is there, back in the old days, what would happen at the registry is human beings would actually have to type and handwrite docs into big, huge books, which are still there. And today, thank you, God, and thank you, Gene, we have scanners.
Right.
So these docs are scanned in, and they're put for backup on discs. So they do have that, and it's obviously much faster. But the problem is there are times when people will go there and they won't be able to record because the computers or the scanners are down. And there's got to be an answer to it. And it's unacceptable to have somebody come there from Ashland, for example, which this county goes way out to Ashland, take an hour to drive in and be told you can't record right now. The computers are down. Or when somebody from their office, another good thing that Gene did is email recording. There are 4 third-party vendors that you set up an account with them as a lawyer or a person, and you can, through your computer, through the internet, forward documents to the third-party vendor.
You electronically record.
Electronically record. And that third-party vendor then, his or her job is then to check them out, see that they're appropriately notarized, and then forward them to the registry. Again, a hitch. What happens is they then sit in queue waiting to be recorded. So the lawyer on one end or whoever's doing it is waiting for his book and page, and it's not coming, which is kind of sad.
So again,
that
it's a
has to
function
be
of
fixed.
throughput.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. It's a good word. So it's a problem, and the only thing I can say is, although that is administrative in nature, it's also legal, because what it does is the human beings that are waiting for their book and page can't, from a legal point of view, move into their home, because the deed at that registry is still sitting in the name of the prior owner.
Yep.
And another comment, and I guess through this campaign, I didn't think about it, but I've come to realize it. In some countries, they don't have recording. They don't have meets and bounds where, we all see, landowners see 48 feet northwest by southwest and so on and so. The beauty of America is that we have registries, and so we know who owns land. If you were in some countries, you could build a house having passed it from mother to father to on and on and on, and at some point a hurricane or something unfortunate happens and the house is gone and there's no title to it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The beauty of the registry is it gives title to people and entities, which is an important function here in Massachusetts and throughout our country.
As my Irish mother would say, it's one of the few good things we inherited from the English.
Okay.
So,
yes.
No emails, please. No emails to Frank. That was me saying that.
Yes. Yeah.
So the platform really about reform is that what you think as a candidate you can bring to that is the efficiencies and the economies of scale, and taking a look at, all right, we have 55 people who work here. There has to be a better way of doing this.
Yes, and 67 people.
67.
But, thereabouts. And what my plan is to sit with them. And some of my opponents say that they would run an audit and do this and do that, and if they're not working, get rid of them, and I don't see it that way. I've learned through my 35 years of being a lawyer and advising companies and advising people and dealing with unions on both sides of it, that you sit with people and you work with people, and if your expectation of them is to do the job, then they will do the job. And morale, what I see, is not good there, and I've got to fix that.
You bring up a word that some of your opponents have used to their favor and to their detriment: the unions.
Yes.
Or is the whole administrative staff at Deeds unionized?
With the exception of the top people, yes.
So the attorneys would not be...
The three, the first, second assistant, and Mr. Falvey are not part of the union.
Gotcha.
But the rest are, so you have to work with them.
Yep.
And I would do that as a young man. I was a member, and I was asked this out in Sudbury. Do you support unions? Well, of course I do. I was a union member, and what I say and always say, what you want from people is a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. Mm-hmm. And that's an issue there at the registry too, as I indicated. And I wish I could do something about it, and I intend to do something about it, because a lot of them there, they either want to work hard or they are working hard. And if given the right opportunity and the right leadership, I know I can help them and they will help me. So I'll lead by example.
You talk a little bit about the cities and towns that comprise the Southern District of Middlesex County. You stretch all the way out to the west, out to Framingham, Ashland, out that way.
Natick, Wayland.
Natick and Wayland, and north up into Malden, Melrose, Wakefield,
Acton, Ayer, Pepper,
along the Route
Shirley.
2. Yeah,
yes,
and
then the Route 2 with Lexington, Weston, Concord, Sudbury.
Or are the issues different, Frank, that you've kind of seen when you travel outside of the metropolitan Boston area when it comes to deeds?
The simple answer is no. People just want to be dealt with. And yesterday I was in Marlborough, and I ran into people that work at the registry, and they said to me, "Thank you for running. We appreciate it. We need a change." So it's the same thing, being treated with respect. and when you get there, not having a door closed in your face. There is presently a shutdown of a 3:45 there, so people start at 8:30 and their day ends at 3:45. I would like to put people, with the help of the unions and the people there, on flex time, so that I can stay open till it's a bullfinch building, a beautiful bullfinch building, and the trial court.
Excuse me, Frank. For the folks at home who are watching, that when Frank describes the Bullfinch building, people know I'm a history buff, I'm an architect buff. It is that beautiful red brick building right outside of Lechmere Square on Cambridge Street.
Yes,
yeah.
And it's been there since about 1900.
Yeah.
And my bar association was there when it opened. But it's a huge building, and the trial court looks at it as a money pit because, with old buildings, maintenance is important and costly. And you've got air conditioners hanging out the windows. And Gene did, I have to say, also upgrade the inside of it. And he's a draftsman, and I was told by several people that he drafted himself as being a draftsman, the inside of it.
Gene told me that himself, too.
Okay.
Gene doesn't let you forget that he's a draftsman.
No, which is a good thing,
Yeah.
but I think you need, and I'm not saying he's done a bad job, but what I'm left with there is some hard work that has to be done from a legal point of view, in understanding what a deed is, and understanding what lawyers and title search people have to go through there, so that I will bring that to bear.
It's an important function, Frank, because I think almost everybody who owns property has to understand what the deed to their property means to them. And it has to be accurate. It has to be dealt with in a very professional manner, as is your probate. People who have to execute wills but property also has part of probate. So those two functions have to be in sync, so that when you pass and your property goes on to somebody else, deeds better have their act together, and it better be accurate when it comes to passing that property on. But let me ask you this question.
Yes.
It's probably something that a lot of people take for granted, that, the Registry of Deeds, I don't think some people think about it as an elected position. I've asked a couple of your competitors the same question. Is it time for us to take a look at eliminating the Register of Deeds as an elected official and moving it into an appointed official?
I've heard arguments on both sides of it, and personally for me, I like the idea that the people get to have a say in who will be their register. As soon as you get into appointing, then who does the appointing? The Secretary of State. And indeed, if the existing register had stepped down today, it would be within the purview and power of Billy Galvin to appoint a temporary acting register.
So there is a danger in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
This way, you come out and you're vetted by the people. You travel from Acton to Ayr to Sudbury, and they ask you questions. Today, I was making phone calls all over the state, and lo and behold, I get an email, what would you do in this situation? And upon answering it and referring the person to a lawyer because that's what she needed, I leaned back and I said, that's why it's so important to have that legal training and background. And you learn from the people, and the people look at you and they weigh you. And Joe, I see it in your eyes. You weigh people day in and day out. Is this a good guy, a bad guy, or what can I expect from this human being? They're giving it to me straight.
Sure.
And that's what people want. Sure. And that's the beauty of running for office. So it would trouble me if this, because it's a power that the people have, if that power to elect were taken from the people.
Right. I think, it's just, it's a debate that's been out there for a long time as to whether, when we did abolish the county system of government, why were there certain functions that got left behind, such as the sheriff's department, register of probate, register of deeds, district attorneys, why was that all left behind? And quite frankly, there are pros and cons to all of it. By putting too much power in the hands of the governor, or too much power in the hands of those he appoints, or in the legislature. I mean, I've kind of always been a checks and balance guy.
And that's what I like about our job.
Split it up, put
Yes.
it up, and put it back in the hands of the people.
Now,
Frank, I'm going to give you about maybe a minute, 2 minutes, if you want to make a pitch directly to the camera and the folks at home.
Thank you, Joe.
Because, you know, interesting conversations go fast.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
we're closing in on our 28.
I truly appreciate what you're doing tonight and giving me this opportunity. So, as I said at the outset, or as Joe said, I'm Frank J. Ciano. I'm a lawyer. I'm a graduate of Boston College. I worked my way through the school, being a member of the Meat Packers Union out of Roxbury, and then I worked in a bank, the Boston Safe Deposit and Trust Company, and with my management training at Boston College and my additional management training at the bank, who paid for me to go to law school, I submit to you that I am possessed with the management skills to run the registry. I have served on boards of trustees throughout Massachusetts, and they've asked me to review budgets and otherwise, so I'm aware of that. I've served in the town meeting in Arlington, where we must accept budgets and approve budgets in the town. In being president of 2 bar associations and being elected to them, that tells you something, that I have the respect of lawyers in Middlesex and in Cambridge, Arlington, Belmont, and that's important. It's important as I lead the 67 people at the Registry of Deeds. And it is Registry of Deeds and register, not registrar. That's another position, a registrar. So I'm possessed with all those skills, and over these many years, today I'm a different man than I was at the beginning of my practice. I've learned to work with people, work with the unions, and I know what the problems are, and I will come up with solutions, as people call me, Mr. Fix-It. I will fix them, and I look forward to your support and help in 48 hours. I guess that's about it.
Thank you.
Look at my commercial, please.
There you go, frankjciano.com. Go on to the internet, and if you don't have a computer of your own, track somebody down in your family and say, I want to see that Ciano commercial.
You get a kick
I
out
did
of it.
happen to see it, right? It was
you like
playing here on Scat TV before you came on to the Pundit Show. So
All right.
I think it is a very, very clever commercial.
I know it's done to get attention. It's done to get attention.
sure.
You know?
All
And
politicians
I'm
need
blessed.
attention, Frank. You know that.
Oh, we all do.
We'd
you
be
know.
sitting in a corner if we weren't getting attention.
Well, my wife says that to me. You know, what about me? You
There
know?
you go.
So we all need that.
She's going to be happy come Friday morning,
Yes,
though,
no
won't
question
she?
about it.
Whatever the outcome,
Yes, she'll
Frank,
work real
she'll
hard.
be happy.
Yes.
I want to make my point one more time. Thursday, September 6th, here in the city of Somerville, please get out and vote. We have a couple of very important preliminaries. As you know, in the democratic process, the one who wins this one, because there are no Republican candidates or independents, no candidate for Register of Deeds or state rep, which are the 2 big ones here in Somerville coming up on Thursday the 6th. Get out and vote. My guest has been Frank J. Ciano, Register of Deeds, Southern Middlesex County.
Thanks
for joining us. Stay safe, stay informed. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.